How I avoid social media algorithms. Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. The word algorithm has seen a huge uptick in usage over the recent years, mostly because of social media and sites like Facebook specifically, where we often blame a lot of, well, society's ills, if you will, on this thing called an algorithm. Well, we need to understand just exactly what an algorithm is, why it's important, and how there are some ways you can actually avoid the algorithm that Facebook and sites like it might be using it. So an algorithm is nothing more than a set of instructions. For example, a recipe to bake a cake is an algorithm. You do this, then you do this, then you add this to that, and then you put the results here and you cook them for a while and out pops a cake, assuming you've done everything correctly. That is ultimately all that an algorithm is, a set of instructions. In this case, or in our case, while a recipe might be an algorithm followed by a person, the algorithms we're talking about for sites like Facebook and others are algorithms that are followed by a computer. Now, one example that I've used in the companion article for this video is the algorithm for checking for new email. It could be as simple as go get the account credentials that I've stored somewhere, sign into the email service, ask the email service if there are any new emails, download the messages if there are new emails to download, and then, if configured, delete the emails from that online service. What's interesting about an algorithm like this is that it shows a couple of conditionals. Download email if there's new email. Delete email if you're configured to do so. That's kind of the power of a lot of computing algorithms, is that they can do things repetitively and conditionally, depending on whatever circumstances the author of the algorithm decides to incorporate in it. Now, when we look at social media, one of the first things we have to understand, of course, is that social media's vested interest is to get us to continue to interact with the service as long as possible. Facebook, for example, makes more money the longer we stay on Facebook. So the algorithm that they use to choose what to show us next probably factors that into the calculation. If you are more likely to interact with cute puppy videos, then it's going to show you more cute puppy videos. Now, of course, cute puppy videos don't result in the destruction of democracy as we know it, but you can infer the kinds of things that people are actively engaging with that might contribute to something less benign than cute puppy videos. There's a sentiment that the algorithm favors what I'll call anger. Things that make you angry are things you're more likely to interact with. So when it sees something that elicits anger out of people, perhaps the algorithm then says this particular piece of information, this particular post or video or whatever, should be given a little bit more prominence, a little bit more weight, and shown to more people. Because since more people are interacting with it, that means more people are staying on the social media platform. And of course, that means we can show them more ads. Now, that's what I refer to as optimizing for retention. It's the concept, as I said, that really the social media platform's vested interest is to keep you on the platform. It's not to inform you. It's not really even to connect you with your friends. It's to keep you on the platform. It's to keep you reading. It's to keep you watching. It's to keep you interacting. Now, granted, letting you connect with your friends or letting you feel like you're getting more educated by interacting on the platform does serve that goal. But those are methods, not necessarily the goal. The goal is to keep you engaged. The method might be to have you interact with your friends. But if you stop interacting with your friends, it'll come up with something else that will hopefully cause you to remain engaged and stay on the platform. So can we avoid it? Well, Maybe. Sometimes. There are a couple of things that folks aren't quite aware of. And then, of course, there are some alternatives, and I'll go through some of those. On Twitter, for example, you may be able to change what's shown first. By default, Twitter shows you what they call top tweets, which is essentially their algorithm. They define what top means. You can, if you like, instruct Twitter to show you most recent tweets first, the reverse history list of tweets, which I think is what most people expect, and it's certainly conceptually easier to understand. Now, the problem with changing this setting, which is not that difficult to do, is that it sometimes gets reset. Every time you open up Twitter on a new machine or in a new browser, or if you clear your cookies or anything like that, then all of a sudden it reverts to top tweets. But if you then change it to see latest tweets instead, great. You can see the latest tweets instead, again, bypassing Twitter's algorithm. Facebook, as it turns out, supposedly has something similar. On the desktop version of Facebook, at least, off on the left-hand side, there should be something called Most Recent. You may need to click a More link to expose it as well. If you click on Most Recent, what it will show you is the most recent posts from the people you're following and the pages you're following. Now, it may also show you those pages and posts that have had the most recent interaction. It's unclear. But the bottom line is, again, this kind of sort of sidesteps the algorithm and shows you what you're really interested in. There isn't a way to make this a permanent setting. In other words, as soon as you click the Facebook icon or the home icon, you go back to their algorithm. You need to then click on Most Recent again. One approach is to potentially bookmark the link that you end up on when you choose Most Recent. Another approach is to use one of the browser add-ins that attempt to control Facebook beyond what it is normally controlled as. And a couple of them will allow you to try to set Most Recent as the default setting. The problem is, of course, Facebook keeps breaking these extensions because they're not officially supported in any way, shape, or form by Facebook. So it can break from time to time, and I've seen that happen. I do use fluff busting purity myself, so it is kind of a nice way to make sure that I'm only seeing Most Recent if at all possible. YouTube is another one. YouTube is one that people don't realize is, in fact, essentially a social media platform as well. They too have an algorithm. If you just go to youtube.com, the videos that they show you are essentially recommended for you based on an algorithm. They're based on what they think you'll interact with, what they think you will watch, what they think you will continue to engage on the site with. As it turns out, you can see the ones you've subscribed to and only the ones you've subscribed to. Again, on the desktop version, on the left-hand side, there's a link that says subscriptions. If you click on that, you will see only the videos from those providers that you have subscribed to, with the most recent videos being shown first. That one is a link you can bookmark, and that is in fact a bookmark that I have. When I go to YouTube, I typically don't go to youtube.com. I'll go to youtube.com/whatever this link is that shows me my subscriptions right away. Now, my approach in general, I do Facebook, I do Twitter, in a lot of ways because I want to connect with people, in a lot of ways because I've got an industry reason to do that. This is part of my job. But there are some other approaches to getting information besides social media. You don't have to be on social media to get your information. Some of the things that I find myself using as I was researching this article, as I was reflecting on exactly how I consume information. One of the most surprising, to me anyway, is email newsletters. I've become a big fan of email newsletters, and I'm not alone. There's been quite a resurgence of email newsletters across the industry. I would claim that I get some of my best information via emailed newsletters. I do suggest you manage it somehow. In other words, rather than having it all show up in your inbox, maybe use a different account, maybe use some rules, maybe use some classifications, whatever works for your specific situation. But I actually like getting all of my email newsletters in one account. I actually have a separate email address for my newsletters, and I just read them all there. That way my inbox is still my inbox for communication with people and companies, but then it's also doesn't distract me from reading my newsletters. My newsletters don't distract me from my email. And what's interesting is that when I've got some downtime, it's very easy then to go fire up this other email account and spend some time consuming the email newsletters that I've subscribed to. Highly recommend that as an approach. Another approach that's very similar to email newsletters are RSS feeds. And this one I get is completely geeky. It is not something that's obvious to the average user. It's something that 20 years ago when it first came out, we all thought was going to change the landscape. And in a sense, it kind of has, but not in the way we expected. It is another way to consume information from websites. The example is, yes, Ask Leo has a weekly newsletter, but I also have an RSS feed, and the RSS feed is updated every time I post a new article on Ask Leo. You can quote unquote subscribe to that RSS feed using an RSS reader. That way, every time you fire up the RSS reader, you get the new articles that were posted by the various sites that you follow. As it turns out, many sites have RSS feeds. Some of the sites don't even realize they have RSS feeds because it's a default function of WordPress, the software that powers something like a third of the websites on the internet. But if you're at all interested, RSS feeds are an interesting way to consume information. Again, only the information you care about, only the sites you care about, and in a way that sets it aside and makes it easy to consume. I personally happen to use Feedly as my RSS reader. Subscriptions seems like it should fall into the same category as, well, either of the previous two email newsletters or RSS reads. But when I talk about subscriptions, I'm talking mostly about patron type of subscriptions, patreon.com kind of subscriptions, or even Ask Leo support, where you typically will get another feed, another set of email, another flow of information from the sites that you've chosen to support or subscribe to. Strongly recommended, not just because clearly this then gives you very targeted information for only those sites that you've chosen to support, but it supports those sites. A lot of these other approaches actually kind of digs into the revenue that keeps those sites running, right? When you get a newsletter, you may not get advertising. When you do an RSS feed, there probably won't be advertising, and yet it's the advertising that keeps those sites up and running. That's very true for Ask Leo. So going the patron route through Patreon or whatever else is available, be it tips or whatever, is another way to not only get focused information into your inbox, but also show your support for a site. A very simple thing that hopefully you're already using, bookmarks. I've got a bunch of sites that are just bookmarked. And every once in a while, I will just walk through those bookmarks and see what's new on those sites. They're often news sites, sites that perhaps I'm paying a subscription for, perhaps not. But the bottom line is that, if I feel the need for information about a particular topic, I will go to the sites that I have bookmarked that focus on that specific topic. Again, these are the collection of, I'll call them trusted sites, reference sites, whatever kinds of sites make sense to you. It avoids the algorithm because you are choosing what it is you want to see. And finally, this one, it's a little bit less of a solution. It's a little bit more hit and miss when it comes to algorithms, but it is a very interesting one that if you've got a specific topic that you are interested in making sure you've got the information on, Google Alerts. What will happen is when you sign up for a Google Alert, it's kind of like searching. So you specify some keywords, a search phrase or term. And by signing up for a Google Alert on that term, you will get an email every time there are new posts anywhere on the internet, new web pages anywhere on the internet that Google has just found as part of their search engine spidering. And they alert you to that. They will give you pointers to those sites automatically in email as they happen or once a day, your choice. I use this to monitor my own brand. I have a Google Alert for Ask Leo. I do this for a couple of topics, like I have a Google Alert for Windows 10. I have a Google Alert for Windows 11. I've got a Google Alert for my own name, Leo Notenboom, because sometimes it's very interesting to see if and where I get mentioned. And occasionally I find out about other Leo Notenbooms at the same time. But the bottom line is it's another way for you to initiate the information coming to you rather than having a social media or other site decide what it is you should see. It does mean, all of these solutions do mean, that you are taking control. But as part of taking control, that does mean you need to make some decisions. You need to take some steps. You need to do a little bit of work. But you can do a tremendous amount of really good information gathering using any or all of these techniques in addition to social media. I hope that was helpful. I hope that gives you some ideas of some approaches to take. For updates, for related links, for comments and more, visit askleo.com/138044. I'm Leo Notenboom. This is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.